Hey guys. Well, I have been busy. Um, been kind of putting together some projects that I've kind of wanted to do for a while. I was working on the Dan Stevens design stick it fun fly airplane, which we'll get to in a second. But the main feature is I got my Great Plains Giant Aeromaster ready to go. I wasn't planning on flying it this year, and I'm still not planning on flying it this year. It's cold and icky outside. No snow yet, but the past few winters we've had, we really didn't get into the snow and really cold temperatures until the first part of January. So you never know. If I can get a decent weekend in the 40s, I'll go. I'll go give it a try. Why the hell not? But it's completely ready to go. The DLE 55 fits very happily in the front. I did opt to go with the standard muffler, which unfortunately means I had to hog out the cowl, but it kind of matches this airplane, if you will. You know, it was intended for, I think it was originally intended for a Fuji 32 or a Fuji 43 or a G38 or something like that. So for those engines, you'd have the exhaust kind of poking out one side, and you'd have the carburetor coming out the other. So that's why it didn't really bother me to have the big stock moose can muffler sticking out of there, because it's appropriate for the airplane. You know, it's not scale or anything, so it doesn't really matter. And plus, I had the muffler. I didn't really feel like spending another $60 on a muffler, or $160 on a Pitts muffler. But I think it turned out pretty nice. Excuse me. It really didn't take too much to get it going. When I got it, it was just in really bad shape. It had been hanging in a hobby shop for a long time and just had just a lot of hanger rash. Um, nothing too extreme. A lot of problems with the covering, which I think I went over in the last video. Uh, the one thing I did do that it was not originally set up for but was an option is I went with the two aileron servos instead of running the push rod from the bottom to the top aileron. I just always felt that that was a better design, and gives you a little bit better authority to the ailerons. Of course, it's a mess of Y harnesses and all sorts of good stuff in there. Um, got a new phone, so yeah. Apparently, it's pretty easy to get my finger in the screen. Um, so you can see you really can't see it too much, but the Y harness for the two top ailerons I just have coming down into one here that goes down the cabane into the fuselage. And I didn't bother trying to fish the Y harness into the wing. I just laid it across and actually just covered over top it with some white monocoat. And you have to look at it pretty hard to even tell it's there. So that turned out pretty good. But I'm happy with it. It's one of those planes that's always been kind of a favorite of mine. And I think the reason that I've always liked this biplane in particular is because it's a cross of two of my favorite classic biplanes. One being a Bucher Youngman, and the other being the Cryercraft. And everybody knows what a Bucher is, but the Cryercraft was built by Harold Cryer, who is actually responsible for the very first Super Chipmunk modification. A lot of people think Art Scholl was the first one. Wrong. Harold Cryer was the first one to modify de Havilland Chipmunk into the Super Chipmunk. So, might be a little history lesson for some. But this plane's kind of an interesting combination of both, which is why I always liked it. So, got it all programmed. Kind of going old school. Got a old Futaba 9Z with the FreeSky module in the back. It's been a very reliable system. I got so many old radios and so many different 2.4 protocols. I try to use all of them. So figured this would be a good one to put in the old 9Z with the FreeSky setup. It has not been a problem in the past, been very reliable, so we'll see how that goes. I know a lot of people have been very interested in this project and the progress of it, because this is a very, very gorgeous airplane. I can't think of anybody that could look at this airplane and not just fall in love with the lines. Such a beautiful airplane. I'm going to take some pictures from just from what I can find online, and have Cali Graphics make me up a set of vinyl for the top and for the fuselage. It's just going to say Great Plains Giant Aeromaster on the wing here, and one on the turtle deck. So, yeah, there we have it. Oh yeah, one other thing. There's been an interesting method for a tail wheel setup that's pretty popular in smaller airplanes, but it just goes to show you that it works very well for this type of airplane. Also, this was intended to have the tail wheel that has the push rod that goes up and kind of 90s into the rudder, and actually has a hinge that goes into the fuselage. Then the wire just comes down and kind of angles, and you have your tail wheel. But that puts a lot of stress on the back of the fuselage and on the rudder itself. I was able just to find this tail wheel bracket online for, I don't know, like $12 or something like that. And of course, it bolts to the bottom of the fuselage where there's hard points in there. Now, I don't know how hard they are, but the screws went in there pretty good. And all that secures it to the rudder is just a piece of Tygon fuel tubing and a servo screw. So now when it works, as you can see, it's kind of shock absorbing in a way. And this takes all the stress off of the rudder. Like if you're bouncing around on the ground or do a nice crosswind landing, it takes all that force out of the rudder. So, I've never used this setup on a plane this size, but it just shows you that it will work, and it'll work perfectly. Not the greatest looking thing in the world, but, when you're back here looking at it, you're never going to see it anyway. So, off topic. I did finish the Stick-It Fun Fly airplane. I mean, it's for the most part finished. I haven't got an engine for it yet. This is just something that I've always liked, these Fun Fly airplanes. I saw one fly for the first time when I was pretty little. A guy came out to the flying field and had one. I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. He had actually moved one of our tables from the pit area out onto the runway, and he was out there doing loop touch and goes off the top of this table, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. You don't see too much of this type of airplane anymore. I think they still do the Fun Fly competitions, but the planes don't really look like this anymore. I could be wrong, I'm not sure. This was a very popular competition segment down south for many, many years. See, just a single wheel on the front, just two pieces of plexiglass running down with a wheel in the middle. Pretty solid. I still have to put a tail skid in the back that'll raise the elevator off the ground. And still need an engine. It's kind of hard for me to stomach buying an almost $200 glow engine for this thing. But kind of have my heart set on an OS 35. I can find old 32s all day long, but I think I'd rather have something new. And of course, keeping with the tradition of these old Fun Fly airplanes, got to have kind of a creative color scheme for it. Of course, all transparent. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Just something relatively cheap and kind of something to do. I've been building so many warbirds and scale airplanes. It's kind of nice just to build something simple. But anyway, we'll see how the weather's going to hold out. It was 50 degrees today, but rain. And I don't know if we're going to have any more nice weekends or not. But if we do, like I said, this thing is ready to go. I always have batteries charged up and ready. So if I get a nice day, maybe we'll give it a shot. Maybe even after the new year, before the snow comes. We'll see. All right, guys. Later.